Welcome, my fellow minions. Today, we are going to figure out how to kill your entire party with goblins. This should hopefully give you some insight on how to properly use and utilize goblins within your campaigns, whether it be for D&D or Pathfinder. However, most of my stats and builds will be based off Pathfinder. However, the base ideas are the same with D&D as well. So, now let's begin. Before we can kill the party, we first have to figure out what goblins are and their role within the world. Goblins are weak creatures. They have a low strength score and are small in size and have a low HP, normally used within campaigns as low-level encounters to help level up the party and solidify the bond between the player characters. However, we don't care for that. We want to TPK. So, we need to find another way to kill them rather than just using brute strength, which brings us to our first strength, speed. Goblins are very fast for their size. They have a base move speed of 30, which most small creatures have a move speed of 20. They also have a +4 to dexterity, which makes them have a decently high AC most times for something so fragile. Goblins' second strength is their tactics. They are relatively intelligent and can use various tactics, such as hit and run and ambush strategies. Their final and most notable strength is their numbers. Goblins breed quickly, they give off litters of children, and only wean for the first few meals of their newly born children. As goblins are born with a full set of teeth, which means they can eat meat almost immediately. After a few days, the goblins are walking around inside the pits, where they grow strong, having to constantly fight other goblins for their survival. They reach adulthood in 12 years, leaving the pits at long last, joining the tribe finally, ready to fight. Most goblins from a litter may die within the pits and be eaten by the others. However, these pits consistently supply new goblins to the fold as new goblins are constantly placed into the pits. This style of breeding gives their ranks a constant influx of new troops and lets their numbers grow vastly. Their numbers could grow by almost 6 a year, every year, in a small warren. Larger warrens may have more pits, leading to more children able to grow strong and giving even more goblins per year. These characteristics are the trademarks of goblins. Now, let's figure out how to use them effectively. We're talking strats now. The most basic way to utilize goblins within your campaign is to use them in a way that they were intended. An early, low-level encounter for your party to play through. Since they will be fairly low health and have low attacks, they can be a good way for your party to start out, as goblins teach them the basics of adventuring. Goblins lay traps, which teaches the players to always look for traps. It teaches to not underestimate an enemy in numbers and helps them to grasp the combat mechanics such as flanking, making them ideal for the first few sessions. Goblins also make great minions. Bugbears, hobgoblins, and ogres are bigger creatures that tend to overpower goblins and force them to be subservient to them, which goblins normally tend to do as they respect fear and power. This allows for a more diverse encounters and buffs larger creatures, as you can use goblins to surround the party, giving larger creatures flanking bonus, which makes them a much bigger threat. Defense is a big deal to a goblin. They don't use as many traps as a kobold or as intricate of traps, but the traps they use are normally crude and effective, such as falling logs or rocks or pitfalls and wrong turns. These traps can catch the adventurers off guard if they are not looking for them and put the party at a disadvantage, so make sure to use them a couple times and you will have your party being cautious all throughout the cave, allowing goblins to use their next strength, stealth. Goblins have a natural +4 to stealth, including their +4 to dexterity and the fact that they normally keep their highest attribute as dexterity. You can have some really difficult to find creatures. Use this to your advantage. Set up roadside ambushes or have them hide inside crevices inside their caves. However, remember that goblins are weak in melee and normally have low HP, and during a surprise round they can attack and run with a base speed of 30. They should be able to escape quickly, so use hit and run tactics when you can. Normally, a goblin warren is laid out in a long stretch of caves where they can set up an ambush after ambush after ambush, retreating deeper and deeper inside the cave. Eventually, the party will either give up on the goblins or keep pushing until the final battle ensues, at which point the goblins trapped in their own warren will surround the party in one last-ditch attack. Remember that goblins are relatively intelligent creatures, having an average 10 in their intelligence. meaning that they will be able to use tactics such as flanking and to know when they are outmatched and when to run. If you always remember to use ambush to hit and run tactics followed by traps within their warren, followed by final tactical assault, you should be able to defend your goblin's warren from these unwanted adventurers. However, higher level parties do pose a greater threat to these weak creatures. So how do we deal with a higher level group of adventurers? Is this the end for our goblins? No, not at all. The first thing we need to do is level up our goblins. This is fairly simple. Make a stat block using base NPC stats. Then give them levels in a class, maybe more levels in warrior for some stronger tribesmen, or maybe you give them a couple levels in rogue for your goblins to deal sneak attacks on their hit and runs. You can do anything your heart desires. I will quickly list off some great classes to use for your goblins. Warrior, Rogue, Fighter, and Alchemist. Warrior makes a great base unit for your goblins, while Rogues give your goblins much higher damage since their hit and run tactics, ambush strategies, and swarming should give you their sneak attack consistently. Fighters make good defensive units. Maybe they have better smiths or able to fashion good armor and weapons, then train their men to use them. Alchemists are a great mage substitute as most goblins don't enjoy magic. However, access to poisons and bombs makes sense for a tribe of goblins. The next option is to give your goblins better gear. Maybe they raided a weapon storehouse, or maybe they have a goblin who is really good at piecing together metals. Whatever the reason, giving your goblins better armor and weapons can instantly make them more challenging. Remember, be sparing in your magic items that you give to them, because magic items are expensive, and even if your party doesn't use them, they will just be reselling them, which gives the party an influx of gold if they manage to escape alive somehow. Another good option to make goblins more effective and difficult is to add goblin riders to the warren. Goblins have been known to ride either wargs, large insects, or more commonly, goblin dog. Goblin dogs are better as they are normally loyal and subservient to goblins. Their quick speed and medium size makes them great mounts for these small goblins. Tamed insects can be used by some goblins, although very rare, but does make for a cool look to see your goblin on top of a large scorpion or spider. The last mount is powerful, though normally isn't that great within the warren. Wargs are intelligent and powerful, and when placed within a warren of goblins, tend to take up dominant roots within the tribe. However, a goblin atop a warg is a formidable foe indeed. The final option is to use goblin troops. Troops function much like swarms of smaller creatures. They get guaranteed damage, and a decent damage at that. The listing for a goblin troop is CR 5. A goblin troop with a general leading them leads for a pretty good encounter. Plus, multiple troops forming an army is something you could consider as well. Troops are devastating because they have swarm traits such as they don't have to attack, they just do their damage which can be devastating to high AC individuals. Troops are also a good way at simplifying large-scale combat. Well, now that we know how to use goblins effectively and how to scale up their power, now it is finally time for the fun part. Now we are going to figure out how to TPK the party. First, as your adventurers are traveling, have your goblins set up an ambush somewhere. Have them attack, then run. By giving this battalion of units levels of rogue, they can attack at max range with short bows and deal heavy blow to the party off start. Then they can run. If the party doesn't give chase, that is perfect. Your rogue battalion has a target now and can assault again and again until the party has no choice but to give chase. If you want, you can even have the goblins take mounts for this part of the attack to escape more easily. Goblin dogs are very stealthy and can help the rogues sneak in. Now comes phase 2. The goblins have prepared a surprise ambush for the party. Maybe they fall into a pit trap, maybe a log trap hits them, or maybe a net trap captures some of the party. Either way, a good well-placed trap here will do the trick. Then, now that some of the party is hurt or disabled, more goblins appear attacking with bows during this surprise round, and then the goblin troops push forward. Now the party has a fight on their hands. You can even throw in some alchemists during this part to do some AoE damage during this part. Finally, the chief walks into the combat, commanding the entire warband. Have him decked out, decent level comparable to the party, with a magic weapon and some magic armor. This should give them a very powerful enemy to have to fight within the massive conflict. At this point, the party may want to run. Don't pursue. Instead, keep lobbing ranged attacks and have the chief tell them to focus the weakest looking one. They may drop, which then the goblins will grab them and take them back home to devour later. So, most of the party survived the ambush. Now they need to rescue their friend. Here is how you finish them off. In the warren, set up traps. However, don't just set up entry traps. Set up traps on manual conditions that trap the adventurers within the cave, forcing them to fight. Now, we have everything set up within our cave. Now we could use the same previous strategies, hit and run, traps, and the final surprise ambush, followed by becoming trapped. Now that the party has fought their way all the way through the warren, and they become really weak, and now that they're trapped, we can pick them off one by one with the chief's direction, and the rangers and alchemists can pick off their range characters. The troops can wipe out their tankier units, and the chief can pick off any other targets that he chooses. We finally did it. We killed the party with goblins. Congratulations. I hope you feel good about yourself as you praise yourself for ending a 6-month-long campaign with tiny goblins. All that effort gone, down the drain, poof. Oh well, it's not your problem, right? They could just make new characters in a new campaign to be done at a later date. Well, until next time, my fellow minion, you have done death proud this day, and should be proud yourself.